Hello, humans. Today we are going to be discussing my favorite books of 2024, which is crazy that it's a Stefan. Say hi to the camera. Oh, you're blocking the microphone. That's probably going to sound real bad. Say hi. Okay, you have to go. That was Stefan. We are going to be discussing my favorite books of 2024. Hello, humans. My name is Asha. Welcome to Butterfly Claps. Hi humans, welcome back to my channel. As I said before, we're going to be discussing my favorite books of 2024. I don't know why I'm moving like a Muppet, but yeah, that's where we're at. So I don't really necessarily have these in order, but I do have my 5 stars first and then some honorable mentions that were 4 stars for me. So I guess we will just jump right into it and start with the 5 stars. So here we go. The first book up is The Wedding Planner. Nope. The Wedding Planner is a movie with Jennifer Lopez. This is The Wedding People by Alison Espach. I don't know that I'm pronouncing this right, but this is it. This is a book of the month book, if you couldn't tell by the book of the month emblem that is written right here. So that's how I came across this book, and I was actually really glad that I read it. So this book is about Phoebe Stone. So Phoebe has wanted to visit the Grand Cornwall Inn for years, and when she finally does, it is nothing like she thought the trip was going to be. She hoped to be shucking oysters, go on long walks and sunside horseback rides on the beach with her husband, and instead she arrives alone. Her husband, the man that she considered the love of her life, gone. The career that she spent all of her professional life working for, leaving her completely unfulfilled. But that's okay, because Phoebe has a plan. At rock bottom, she arrives in Newport, Rhode Island, completely dressed to the nines, silk green dress, gold heels, not a bag in sight, booked for a room that she cannot possibly afford, but determined to have one last splurge on herself and make it a night to remember. Unbeknownst to Phoebe, the entire inn has been booked for the whole week for a young socialite's wedding, and they have booked every room except for Phoebe's. Mistaken by a guest by the rest of the wedding people, the name, clever. She gets swept up into the festivities of the wedding weekend and the brewing drama between the wedding party, and her plans are completely derailed, but that may not be such a bad thing. So this book was not at all what I expected. Ooh, please stop hitting your microphone. Was not at all what I expected, but it was everything I did not realize that I needed. I feel like there should be some trigger warnings that I wasn't aware of when I first started reading the book. For like, I think probably like dealing with depression and self-harm, those kind of 2 things, and maybe some like, no, I won't say that. I don't think so. But yeah, but definitely dealing with depression and self-harm. There should be trigger warnings for those if they're not there. So trigger warning to those people who are reading it. But it's really, really, really good. I wasn't expecting Phoebe to be as much of an inspiration as she was, which kind of sounds really cheesy, but she is. And I think that over the course of the book, she kind of makes you want to live your life to the fullest and live out loud. And it's just really inspirational. And I really enjoyed it. The characters are very entertaining. And they do a good job of making the young socialite that whose wedding it is. I don't know if that made sense, but the young socialite whose wedding is happening that week, the author does a great job of making her likable, even though she has very unlikable moments, I guess, if that makes any sense. But yeah, I would highly recommend this book. I 10 out of 10 it. Obviously there are probably some errors with it, or not errors. Probably some people can find different issues with the book, but I just really enjoyed it, and it was a good ride, and it kind of went in different directions that I was expecting. Not necessarily like once you start reading the story, you know where it's going, but I think when I first read the synopsis, I didn't realize. Are you two fighting? Really? My cats are fighting. Yep. Okay. But yeah, when I first read the synopsis, I didn't know where it was going to go. And so I was pleasantly surprised. So yes, Again, these are in no particular order, but these are just books that I did in fact love. So yes, The Wedding People, by Allison Espach, or Espach, Espach. Yeah, really like it. So sorry to the author if I'm like murdering her name, because I probably am. Next book is Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young. Yes, by Hannah Bonham Young, Out on a Limb. I will place a picture of it right here. So I found this book I found this book in the library, but I think I saw it floating around on like Instagram somewhere, or maybe on like BookTube, because I'm pretty sure I saw it floating around there, but I grabbed it because when I grabbed it, I was like really adamant that I had been wanting to read this. So I think it's because I saw it floating around, and I'm so glad that I picked it up. It was so fantastic. I really enjoyed it. This is An Accidental Pregnancy, Strangers to Friends to Lovers, Slow Burn. Funny, laugh out loud, comedic romance novel. And I'll start this off by saying that I'm not really a huge fan of the accidental pregnancy trope, but the way that this was handled and the way that they did it was really, really well done. Our main character is Winifred Wynn McNulty. Our main male character is Bo. They meet at Wynn's best friend's annual Halloween party. They immediately hit it off and find out they have more in common than their limb differences. Wynn has I don't know how to describe it. It's like she has a limb difference with her hand, and I think the way that it's described in the book, and kind of you can see on the cover, is that like on her, I believe it's her left hand, but I could be wrong, could be her right hand. Her fingers are kind of like she has a thumb, and then the rest of her fingers are a bit shorter. She was born this way. And Bo is an amputee, so he's missing one of his legs. And neither of them is looking for love. Wow, that was just a fountain of spit. Sorry if you guys saw that. Neither of them is looking for love when they first meet. But when their one night stand leads to a little unexpected surprise, they both realize that sometimes it's okay to lean on another person, and that having someone to love might not be as bad as it seems. And I think as I stated before, I absolutely loved everything about this book. The main characters, the side characters, the pacing, the slow burn. I love a good slow burn. 10 out of 10. Highly would recommend. The majority of the book, like I said, the majority of the book is very lighthearted and laugh out loud funny, but they do deal with some more serious topics, such as abuse that happens in the past. We don't see it, it's like a past event, but they talk about it. Depression, self-harm, also something that happens in the past, so trigger warning for those people out there who need that. But I really just love how tender and sweet and caring Bo and Wynn were to each other, and how much they like took care of each other and really listened and tried to understand the other person's perspectives, and there was like no judgment. It was just a beautiful example of a relationship, and it was a beautiful example of how it's like nice to kind of start from friends and get to know each other from that point before you jump into all the romantic sexy times, because then those romantic sexy times mean a lot more sometimes. Not to say that's the way it goes for everybody, but like sometimes it can have a lot more depth, and I thought that was really cool. So yep, this was the first book that I just a lot of gesticulation. This was the first book that I read from Hannah Bonham Young, and I think I'm officially hooked. I want to read a whole bunch more because I love a good slow burn. Even though you're like, slow burn, they had a baby. Yes, there was one steamy hot sex scene in the beginning. Or can you say sex on YouTube? It's Skeggs scene. There was a steamy Skeggs scene, and then the rest was slow burny. Yeah. So anyway, yes, I recommend it. It was fantastic. Go pick it up. I loved it. It was great. The next book is The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. I do have that one. Okay, so This book, I think, was I don't even know how this book was, I think this is the first book that I read because I'm trying to get into, or I wanted to get into like high fantasy books, that like, the like very long, complicated high fantasy. And this definitely falls in that wheelhouse. Um, this is book, nope, that's upside down. Okay. Yep. This is book 1 in the King Killer Chronicles. Excuse me. Describing it, so I'm gonna describe it, but it's not gonna sound as amazing as it is, and I will explain that after I'm done describing it. It's an epic telling of the life story of a magically gifted young boy named Kavoth. The story is actually told in the older voice of Kavoth, so him as an adult, and it jumps back and forth through time from like their present day, like as him older, and it goes back in time and talks about his life when he was younger, and it's supposed to all lead back up to where he is now. In the first book, where he reflects on his childhood in a group of traveling players, and then it jumps ahead years later to him basically as a orphan living out on the streets trying to survive. And then it tells his kind of like brazen but successful bid to get into this like prestigious school of magic. Like I said, it doesn't sound like, just so that's basically like all I can tell you without like getting into like every single nook and cranny of the plot. And like I said, it doesn't sound as like amazing as it is. And I actually ended up DNFing this book twice. I started it once when I got it from the library, and then I saw this on I got this what is it, like paperback version from maybe like Walmart or Target, and started it again and then DNF'd it again. But then I listened to it on audiobook, and on audiobook it is amazing. And you really just kind of get wrapped up in the story, the way that the are they called orators? The way that the person narrating the audiobook voiced all of the characters and kind of brought you into the world. It was really great. And it pulls you in, and you become really interested. And it's very wordy, but it's very beautifully worded. I don't know if that makes any sense. But I didn't want to leave the story by the time the first book was over. I will say I have not started the second book, and I finished this well, I don't remember the exact date, but it was sometime in 2024, obviously. But I finished it, and I didn't start the second book because it's supposed to be a trilogy, and the third book is still not out yet. And I say still not out yet because the second book has already come out, and I think it's like been it's somewhere between 7 and 10 years, and he still hasn't written the third book, to the point where the fans are like up in arms about it. And so I really am just trying to hold out. I don't know how long it's going to take. I'm crossing my fingers that he finishes the book and it's not another like George R.R. Martin situation where he's like, I can't finish. I hope he finishes the book, and I kind of don't want to get sucked into the second one and then just be left on a cliffhanger, because I want to know how the book finishes. And I've already gotten a little bit of some teeny spoilers from a friend who read it, and she's like, yeah, you're going to be like wanting to know what happens in the third book. And so I'm not trying to set myself up for that failure. So I have not started it yet. So that's the one thing I will caution. This book is 5 out of 5. It is really chunky. She's chunky to read. But if you listen to it, so if that intimidates you, listening to it on audiobook is amazing. And I would suggest that, because then you can do it while you're driving to work or while you're cleaning or whatever, whenever you like to listen to audiobooks. And then you can get through it that way, and it's really great, and the narrator is really fantastic. And so yes, I highly recommend this book, but I will just say that with the caveat that the series is not finished, and there may not be a finish in sight, so take that as you will. Yeah, okay. The next book is Fangirl Down by Tessa Bailey. This book made me so happy. Okay, so I honestly have no idea where I heard of this book. I think that I found it in Target. Like I was, when I don't know what some people do when they go to Target, you know, because we all end up going there and buying things that we don't need. But I specifically, whenever I go into Target, just like beeline it to the book section just to see what's there. And I saw this book, I read the synopsis, I picked it up and was like, yes, please, hopefully it's good. And I was not disappointed. Short description: Fan Go Down is a comedic, grumpy sunshine sports romance. Main male character, his name is Wells Whitaker. And at one point in time, he was like the hottest young rising star in the golf world, but now he can barely make it through a game. His career is practically non-existent, but still, no matter how poorly he does, he has one die-hard fan, and that fan is Josephine Doyle. She is like the president of the Wells Bells. I think that's what they call his fan club, the Wells Bells. But so after one particularly crappy game, Wells quits in like this blaze of glory, and he sends Josephine home, and he does it in a rather gruff manner. And then he decides to quit the game and just try and go back to regular life. But once he's back in his like regular life alone at home by himself, he realizes that he misses the sound of Josephine cheering in the background, and also he realizes that he was a little gruffer than he intended to be with her. And it's like, when I first read it, I was like, this might sound a little creepy because she's just a fangirl, but they've kind of, because she's been his only fan for like years at this point, and she goes to like all of his home games, they've kind of built a rapport. So it's kind of like you know, like a fan that he knows well, I guess, if that makes sense. Like, so kind of a friendship. So it's a little less like creepy-esque. But so anyway, I digress. Yeah. So when his guilt from his last conversation with her kind of gets the best of him, he decides to check up on her. And when he does, he sees that she might be kind of in a bad way. So he comes up with a plan, and he shows up to her door because he knows that she's having money troubles. I don't think that's a spoiler. If it is, I'm sorry, but it's not a big one. So he comes up with this plan that he will come out of retirement. I don't think he ever really announced retirement, but that he'll come out of retirement, and he'll start playing again, and Josephine will be his caddy. And so they will split the winnings of each game that he wins so that she can get money. And as they travel together, Josephine kind of chips at his like rough, icy exterior, and then they start to catch feelings for each other. And they have some top tier banter between the two of them. I love it. There were multiple moments when I like quite literally cackled out loud like a crazy little witch person. I'm also a sucker though. I'm also a sucker for a good grumpy sunshine dynamic. Love it. And reading about the way that their relationship developed and the way that they started to really care for each other was just like, it melted my little heart, and it hit me with all of the feels. So I definitely recommend this book. Super good. And there's some spicy, sexy moments in here too, that are a little hot. But yes, so that is Tessa Bailey, Fangirl Down. And there's a second one, because I think it's like a series. It's not the same people, but it's like her best friend and his best friend, called The Au Pair Affair. I got that book. I have not read it yet. I'm looking forward to reading it. Like, after just telling you guys the synopsis and talking about this book, I like legit want to read it again, even though it's not on my TBR for this month, but you know, might do it. Okay, yeah. Next up is the House Witch series. And I say this like the entire series, I 5-starred. It's by Delamock. I'm not sure. I'm going to put it right here. A coworker of mine actually told me about this series, and this is like a cozy mystery fantasy romance. It's giving the same vibes as Legends and Lattes in terms of like coziness, because of the main character. So the main character, Finlay Ash Owen is his name. He is the newest staff member for the King and Queen of Astoria. Nope, I was going to say Astoria. That's not. The King and Queen of Dexaria. and no one knows where he came from or how he came to be the youngest cook to ever grace the castle kitchens. And Finn is content with that. He's content to lay low and be a humble like cook, especially since it's going to protect his secret. He's only able to hide his gift for so long, and as it starts to be discovered by the court, Finn finds himself in swept up into a slew of intrigues and shenanigans that happens within the castle. When I say that every book in this series was chef's kiss, fantastic. I mean, every book in this series was chef's kiss, fantastic. Like, I love this. Finn is at once endearing, charming, infuriating, lovable, ridiculous. I mean, honestly, pick an adjective is what Finn is. He's a fantastic male lead or male main character for this series. And the side characters in this series are a thing of beauty. They are amazing. Like, all of them, like, you love all of them. And the growth that everyone throughout the whole series goes through in the course of the 3 books is just like out of this world, fantastic, completely well written. Loved. I don't know if you can tell how much I'm emphasizing how much I loved it. Now, this one I listened to on audiobook, and I recommend listening to it on audiobook because the narrator nails the voices. They are so freaking good. They are amazing. Yeah. The only thing I will say is that the cat, Finnegan, in the book, who was one of my favorite characters, the narrator for the first 2 books definitely narrated in a bit of a black accent, which came out of nowhere for me. I didn't know, and if you don't know what a black accent is, look it up. And I was like, oh, I didn't know how I felt about it. I didn't hate it, but I didn't know how I felt about the choice because it seemed very random, and I don't know if maybe someone else said something about it, because in the 3rd book, Finn's accent, or not Finn, Lord, I said Finnegan. What is Kraken? Kraken is the name of the gosh darn Kraken. He had a bit of a black accent in the first 2 books, and then in the 3rd book, his accent changed. And so I don't know why that choice was made. I don't know, but it didn't really detract from the book for me. It just took me out for a second when I very first heard his voice. But other than that, so good. The narration is so good. I loved it. It was fantastic. Read it. Don't disappoint yourself or me. Pick it up. Read it. Yes. Divine Rivals. I said it again. Oh my God. Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. I love this book. And you guys, I annotated it. I think this is one of the first books that I annotated. And that means that I really loved it. It was just so good. It was one of those romances that just, stop hitting your mic, girl. I'm not used to having a mic. It was one of those romances that just, it made me feel the things. I really loved Iris and Roman. They were just, the story. I loved, like, yeah, I'm not describing it well. The story is about these 2 journalists. And so Iris, there's like, so basically, okay, there's a war going on between these gods, and the gods have been recruiting different sides to their war. And so, as a journalist, when Iris's brother gets recruited to the goddess's side, because I believe it's a god and a goddess, and when Iris's brother gets recruited to the goddess's side of the war and then goes MIA, she decides to become a war journalist. She's already a journalist, but she decides to apply to become a war journalist, so that she can try and find him, or at least find out what happened to him. And in the process, she has, so like, and at the what are they called? Oh my God, it's been so long since I've known about newspapers. At the at the newspaper she works for, she has a rival journalist, and his name is Roman Kit. Is that his name? Yeah, Roman Kit is her like nemesis, and through she ends up gosh, how do you explain? I'm not explaining this well at all. But her rival journalist, she has a rival journalist, and his name is Roman Kit. And when her brother disappears, she ends up writing these letters to her brother, even though, because they can't find him because he's MIA, and she's typing them on this typewriter, and she like ends up like shoving them under this armoire in her room, like to send them to him. And unbeknownst to her, at first it's magical, and the letters get sent to someone, and they start replying back. And come to find out, and this is not a spoiler because we know Iris is unaware, they end up going to Roman Kit, and so he starts replying back to her. It's giving very much You've Got Mail. That's what it's giving. It's very much a You've Got Mail situation, except there's a war going on and they're war journalists. And so when she goes to join the war as a war journalist who is supposed to be neutral, Roman Kit ends up following her. And we watch them fall in love over the course of these letters, and then eventually in person, and it's really, really good. The first book is just really beautifully done, and it's just really romantic, and it just wipes it, like sweeps you up into this kind of like, old time, like epic romance. Loved it. I did not love the second book as much, the sequel to this one, but the first book I really loved, and I think I read it in like one day. It was just so good. Or maybe I lie. That's a lie. I read it in a couple of days because I was annotating. It took me a little longer, but yeah, I highly recommend this book. Very good. Okay, I think that's it for the actual 5 stars. Let me double check my notes here. Oh, there's one that I 5-starred. It was a Hermione fan fiction. I don't know if I'll have the actual cover there because it's a fan fiction, so it technically doesn't have a book cover. But it was 10 out of 10. That's what it was called. It was a 10 out of 10 for me, but the actual story was called 10 out of 10, and it was a Hermione fan fiction, and it was like chef's kiss. It was the trope where like the government did mandated marriages because they needed to increase the magical youth population, and Draco and Hermione end up getting paired together, and are told that they need to get married and have a baby within like a year. I think they need to get married within a year and then have a baby within 2 years or something like that, or else there's like prison time. And so they end up being forced together, and it's like a whole proximity thing, but it's really good, really spicy, really sexy. And yeah, really good. 10 out of 10, literally, and then also 10 out of 10 for my rating of it. Yes, it was great. Okay, but now to the honorable mentions. The honorable mentions, The Best Thing by Mariana Zapata, and we have discussed how much I love a good slow burn, and she is the queen of the slow burn. I have read several of her books. I read Colty, which I think I 5-starred. Did I read Colty last year? If I did, I'm sorry, Colty, for not putting you on this list. Because if I did, I definitely 5-starred Colty. So if I did, Colty is added to this list. Colty is a sports romance, and I wouldn't even call it Grumpy Sunshine. It's like grumpy and grumpier, but they like work really well together. And it's about and I'm gonna forget the main girl's name, but the guy's name is Colty because it's the name of the book, and he's like this super soccer in America, in the States, football for everybody else who has sense, football star, and she's an American football player, and he's retired, and he ends up becoming the coach for her team in the States, and they end up falling for each other over the course of this whole book, but it's very good. And the slow burn is so good, and the buildup is so good, and the way that the relationship develops is so good. Clearly, I need to learn more adjectives and synonyms so that I can accurately and fully articulate what I want to say about this book, but it's really good. So I don't know why I'm talking about that, because that wasn't to mention. This one, the book that I was giving an honorable mention is The Best Thing. Again, because Mariana Zapata does a lot of sports romances. This one is also, well, you can call it a sports romance. He is a he's a rugby player. The main male character is a rugby player, and the main female character her owns with her grandfather. They own a boxing gym. That's what that was. A boxing gym. And I can't remember if she played sports or if she was into some, maybe she played rugby. I cannot remember at all. I think she did. I think she did something because when they originally met, she was overseas and I think she was playing some kind of sport. I just do not recall what it was. But anyway, this one is a. I don't know that I would call it. It's what's the trope? It's not surprise baby. Like so, she has a baby and he doesn't know about it, and then he shows up one day at her boxing gym to kind of like try and reconnect, and then he finds out that he has a kid. Again, I don't typically love those tropes because I do not like when people don't tell people about babies or children. It's a thing for me. It irks me. I do not like it. But the way that this was handled was really well done. And it'll make sense once you read it. But again, she's also really good with the side characters. And I really love the main female character's relationship with her grandfather and her, I'll say grandfather, is that a spoiler? Her grandfather and her godfather. I love her relationship with them. And he's just the main male character is just such a teddy bear and you love him almost immediately, so it's a really weird feeling because you want to be like, no, why aren't you here for this baby, but then you kind of still love him. So obviously she had to do something to swing us back in the direction so our feelings would make sense, and she did a great job with it and it's really good. The next honorable mention is Assistant to the Villain. Assistant to the Villain. It is by I don't even have it. Crap sticks. Who is it by? Nicole. What is her name? It's going to be written here. So, Assistant to the Villain. Fantastic. Laugh out loud. Just a bunch of shenanigans, and it follows. And again, I don't remember the characters' names. There's the villain, and he has a name, and I forget his name, but they call him the villain a lot. And then our main character, so basically the whole premise is that she has a sick father and she has a younger sister, and her mom and her brother both died years ago, and so she's the only breadwinner for her family, and she just recently lost her job, and so they're okay. So I don't even know if I'm looking at the right place, and if the sound sounds different, I am so sorry. I had to switch to my phone because I ran out of battery with my camera, but I was talking about Assistant to the Villain.
Okay, so editing Nasha here. Why is it that the lighting on my phone is way better than the lighting on my camera? That's some bullshit crap. Yeah, so basically my phone battery, or not my phone battery, my camera battery ran out and I had to switch to my phone, and I forget what that stuff is called. My brain is blinking out. But the thing, like, I'm gonna look way too far down. The framing is gonna be off, but the volume actually doesn't sound so bad. But yeah, now I'm mad that I just didn't use my phone the whole time because the freaking lighting is so much better. Everything looks so much brighter, which is ridiculous. Anyway, back to your regularly scheduled program. Blech.
And so where was I? Geez. Oh, okay. So they're about to be SOL because she's just out of a job and they need money, and she's the only breadwinner, and she's taking a walk home through the forest, and she runs into this man who is being, or she runs into these guards, these knights, these king's guards or whatever, that are chasing someone that she can't see, and she ends up getting pulled down, and it's the villain, and he is known as the villain, and through some witty, ooh, excuse me, I'm having soda. Through some witty banter, he ends up like after some witty banter, he ends up offering her job as his assistant, and he's paying good money. And because she doesn't want to tell her father that she lost her job, she agrees to take the position as assistant to the villain. And it is very much Grumpy Sunshine, and the characters are very funny. There's a lot of will they won't they. There was a second book, and I read the second book. The second book was good, but I just didn't know. But I will say that the will they won't they continues throughout the second book, but it is still hilarious. Shout out to Kingsley. You know, if you know, you know, you'll see. Yeah, so that one was very good. And the last honorable mention is You and Me by Tal Bauer, and I don't, is it Tal? Bauer by Tal Bauer. This one is a well, I guess it's like a strangers to friends to lovers bi awakening male sports romance. I guess is what you would call it. And single dads, and slow burn. And it's really sweet. It's about these two guys named Landon and Luke, single fathers. Luke is has been having difficulty connecting with his son for years, and then his wife, with the recent death of his wife, um it with the recent and then with the recent death of his wife, the chasm between them kind of gets bigger. The divide between them is bigger, and they can't seem to connect. And he by chance ends up meeting Landon, who was actually the father of his son's best friend. And he ends up convincing him that maybe the way that he can connect with his son is to join it's like, I don't know what you would call it. It's kind of like it's kind of like the PTA, but it's for specifically for the football team, the varsity football team. And so Luke, who knows nothing about football, agrees to do it, and Landon kind of shows him the ropes, and he sees firsthand like his Landon's relationship with Landon's relationship with his son, and he's kind of like well, I won't even say he's envious. He's envious in the sense that he would like that with his son, but because, and I wish I knew names because this isn't going to be clear. But so Landon's son is best friends with Luke's son. So he ends up inadvertently getting to spend a lot more, Luke ends up getting to spend a lot more time with his son because they're all kind of hanging out together. And therefore, it starts to kind of help their relationship. And and he ends up falling in love. Luke ends up falling in love with Landon. That was a piss poor explanation, but it's really beautifully done. And the way that he kind of like, again, like I said, it's a bi awakening, so he didn't realize he was attracted to men before, and the way that he understands, like the way that those feelings develop and the way that they handle it, is really beautifully done. And just how tender and sweet and like caring and understanding they are with each other, and the way that the other one sees like what one of them sees as a fault in themselves, the other one, it sees it as something that they like or appreciate. And yeah, it's just beautiful, like their friendship and just how they take care of each other, and that they're like real partners and how they support each other. And also watching the relationship develop between Luke and his son is also beautiful, because there was a whole bunch of like misunderstandings and things that kids don't like, know about their parents that get revealed, and it's just beautiful. I really loved that one. Uh, and I think that I don't know why I didn't 5-star. I think I wanted them to delve a little bit deeper in certain aspects of the story, but it was still really beautiful. So it's like a high 4 stars, which is why I gave it an honorable mention. And that is the last one. This recording, or this video is like ridiculously long. Also, this framing is insane because I definitely just stacked this on top of my other camera. I feel like I should actually be like here, but I can't maintain that because I'm like squatting. Yeah. Anyway, thank you for joining me on this ride. Until next week, I will see you. Again, thank you for staying with me if you've stuck here for this long. And I apologize if the sound is crap. My bad. I will see you next Sunday. Bye.